Look, it's been a while since I properly did a sit down on camera review, and there's a reason for that. Number one, I've been busy doing my job at Lumen, being severed, and I've also been on vacation in Thailand for the White Lotus Season 3, and also, if I'm being honest, 2025 so far as movies are concerned, I haven't really been moved to sit down and actually break down a film. Of course, I've done out-of-theater reactions, small reviews, but it wasn't until Ryan Coogler, Michael B. Jordan, Hailee Steinfeld, Wunmi Mosaku, Delroy Lindo came to us with a supernatural period piece horror film about vampires in the South in Mississippi in 1932. Oh yeah, we got to talk about it. But the question is this new film by Ryan Coogler a hit? Is this worth checking out? Is it a bona fide banger? We'll be discussing that and much more in today's spoiler-free review of Sinners. Trying to leave their troubled lives behind, twin brothers return to their hometown to start again, only to discover that an even greater evil is waiting to welcome them back. So, first and foremost, Sinners was easily one of my most anticipated films of the year for many different reasons. For who's behind it, the subject matter, I can go on and on and on about my hype level for this film. But leading up until when I saw it last night, I had heard all the hype about it. I had seen all the reviews for the most part as far as people calling this a masterpiece, a 10 out of 10, one of the greatest films of the year, which I do agree with that because it hasn't been a good year for film, like I said up top. But neither here nor there. Does it stick the landing? Is it one of the best films that Ryan Coogler has done in his career so far, which has been great? Is it worth checking out? Well, let's talk about it. Starting off my pros, and I want to start off by talking about Ryan Coogler, who I have been a fan of since Fruitvale Station, into Creed, into Black Panther, into Wakanda Forever, and all of those big projects, small projects, personal projects have led him to this film. Now, I said this in my out-of-theater reaction last night that personally, I still have 2018's Black Panther as my personal favorite film of his for reasons that it is culturally important, the impact that it had on the industry, that Black people can lead films in a major way, but also it's a pretty damn great film as it is. But I still have that number one, and I'm going to have like a ranking of Ryan Coogler's films sooner rather than later. But that film into this film, Sinners. I think Sinners is his best made film today. Like, to me, this feels like that Christopher Nolan type of momentum, right? Someone that came out of the gate with something like The Following, Memento, and, you know, we all know Christopher Nolan's resume at this point, but then he went into the blockbuster, right? He did the Batmans and the Interstellars and the Inceptions of the world and Tenet and obviously Oppenheimer most recently and Into the Odyssey. I see a very similar trajectory for Ryan Coogler. I do feel like he's going to finish his trilogy with Black Panther, but I feel like he's going to do the one for them, one for me. And when he does the one for me, you get something like Sinners. And what we got with this film, if you don't know, this is a very personal film from Ryan Coogler, as he's spoken about in the incredible press run that they've been doing for this film. As he's talked about, this was a love letter to his uncle who passed away. This film was dedicated to his uncle, who was like a very important figure in his life, who was very much ingrained in the South and with music, and particularly with blues. And Ryan spoke on in many different interviews how when he would listen to music, he would think about his uncle, so he wanted to translate that into a different medium, and that's where Sinners comes in. And we'll talk about the music and the importance of music in this film, but you can see the passion, the energy, the creative endeavors that he invokes in this film. And again, it's all on screen. It's all in front of us to see, and all the tools, all the resources, all the lessons learned from those films that he's done before, the 4 previous films, again, from small independent to big blockbusters. He takes all those things and injects it in this movie. Like, this is a genre-bending journey of just craziness. It's multi-layered, it has deep commentary within the culture, it has the action popcorn moment, it has heart, it has sexiness. Like, this is Ryan Coogler, like, showing Hollywood. If you didn't already know who he was, you will know who he is now. I'm so proud. I said this again last night in my out-of-theater reaction. I'm so happy and proud to be in the moment, to be alive while we're seeing Ryan Coogler carve out his name in the banners as one of the greatest directors working today. He is just so damn talented. It's full on display in this film, and I just thought that he did a hell of a job, not only putting the craftsmanship in the way the film looks and it feels, but also the penmanship, the way that this film is written, the dialogue, the deep conversations. It is very dialogue heavy, which I appreciated at points. But shout out to Ryan Coogler. You did your damn thing. Moving on to one of the stars of this film, and that is the musical element. As I mentioned, this stems from the foundation of the origins of the story, comes from his personal connection with his uncle, which has ties to the South, which has ties to blues and music. And music is so important to this narrative. Without giving too much away, we have this particular character by the name of Sammy, aka Preacher Boy. And Sammy has a gift that transcends time and space. And I'll just leave it at that. And we'll talk about that further in maybe a spoiler review. Keep an eye out for that video. The importance of music and how it moves and vibrates and creates a tone and a narrative and aesthetic of this film is just so important. Ludwig and Ryan's collaboration, they've been working together since Black Panther. He might have actually did Creed as well, if I'm not mistaken, but I love their collaboration. I'm a big fan of Ludwig, and this score is so damn good. It is so integral to just the overall tone and the narrative that we have here, and couple that with an incredible soundtrack that we have as well. Like, music, I will go as far as to say this isn't a musical, but the expression of music and how people express themselves and how they're able to be free and how they use their music and what it means to them is so pivotal. Like, it's been a while since I've seen music be such a pivotal character in a narrative like this that has, again, race and has spirituality and has, vampires and lore and supernatural. Like, the music is so well highlighted in this film, and it's definitely one of my favorite elements. Moving on to these performances, man. First and foremost, very similar to Ryan Coogler, I've been following Michael B. Jordan's career since Hardball to The Wire, and just seeing him grow to the man that we all kind of like as an actor. And I know Michael B. Jordan sometimes chooses roles that fits him as an actor, and there's nothing wrong with that, right? Sometimes he plays similar characters, but this, to me, up there with Fruitvale Station, this has to be one of his best performances, if not his best performance of his career. And I say performances because we see him playing these twin brothers, Smoke and Stack, and I had such a fun time watching these two characters, and I had an even better time watching Michael B. Jordan take on the two roles, which is such a cool thing to see, man. They're so distinct. They're very different. I love that from a visual standpoint, they made them separate. Like, one's wearing red, one wearing blue, the good, the evil. One's more quiet and reserved, but also has like a big brother energy, and that's the Smoke character. Then you have Stack, who's a little bit more laid back, but he is, he can handle his own, but he has that little brother energy to him. I love their different paths and their love interests and their stories and how one leans toward one way than the other. It's just such a well-layered performance by Michael B. Jordan, and he did his damn thing. Like, I think, again, up there with Fruitvale, up there with Creed, like, this is probably my favorite performance of his because, again, he's tasked with playing two roles, but they're so distinct and there's such a arc with both of the brothers, and I really enjoy what he brought to the table. Another actor I've been following since they were a kid, since True Grit, is Hailee Steinfeld, and I sometimes forget that she's a grown-ass woman. We're not too far away in age, and this is a different role from Hailee. Like, this is a more mature, a definitely more sexier role. Like, she's very, very much leaning to the sexuality of her as an actress, but also to this character and what that character has to offer as she plays Mary, someone that has a history with one of the brothers and something that happens to her that changes her, and I love her dynamic in this film. I can go on and on and on about this cast, but Delroy Lindo, absolute legend. He is such a great character in this film as Slim. He's given uncle energy in this film, protective energy. He has some comedic moments that I enjoyed. You have someone like Omar Miller who plays Cornbread, who also brings a sense of levity, but I really enjoyed him. I want to talk about these next three actors. Jack O'Connell, who plays the villain in this movie. I'm thinking Kiefer Sutherland, right? As far as Lost Boys type of energy, as far as what he brings to his role as the villain. And what Ryan does a great job with all of his films is his villains aren't necessarily villains in their eyes. They're the heroes of their own story, and I like how the main vampire is very convincing, and I'll just kind of leave it at that. But Jack was phenomenal in this movie, and we'll talk about the vampire specifically a little bit later, but I thought he was great. I very much enjoy what we have with Wunmi Mosaku as Annie, who also has a very similar to Mary, has a relationship with one of the twins, and a very personal, sad, uplifting story between them. I really enjoyed her performance, and I love what she brings to the table and how she has some connective ties to the supernatural and how she gives the audience exposition of it all. I really enjoy Wunmi. She's always great in everything I've seen her in. She was fantastic. But I want to wrap up by talking about a newcomer by the name of Miles Staton, who plays Sammy Moore, aka Preacher Boy. Again, from what I understand, this is his first big breakout role, and boy, did he leave a lasting impression. Now, the film has been promoting Michael B. Jordan, Hailee Steinfeld, rightfully so. They've earned the right to have their name leading the billboards, on the posters, marketing them like crazy. It's only right. But honestly, when you see the film, it's really Sammy's story. Like, Sammy is very pivotal to this movie, to the objectives that certain characters are trying to get. He's very important, and that boy delivers on multiple fronts. Number one, the performance is great, very believable, very grounded, very much a character you root for, very great in the role, has really good screen presence as a young actor. But then on the other side, I mentioned the pivotal nature of how important music is, and when my boy opens his mouth and lets out the vocals, my goodness, that boy was phenomenal with the singing performance. So somebody take me in your eyes. Sammy, aka Preacher Boy, Miles, you did your damn thing. I'm really excited to see your career move forward if that's something he wants to pursue as far as more acting gigs, and hopefully we get more Ryan Coogler and Miles, and the collaboration that we have with obviously Coogler and Michael B. Jordan, which I love their collaboration. They've worked together 5 times now, and their collaboration hasn't let me down yet. But again, Miles, you did your thing, as well as the entire cast. Phenomenal ensemble cast with this movie. Now, switching gears and talking about my appreciation of the tone, the look, the feel, the aesthetic of being placed in this period piece. Again, we're in 1932 Mississippi, and from the cars, the costume, the way the characters speak to one another, the look of this film is so authentic. It's just like, again, you were transported to that time. I love, again, how they just took the time, the attention to detail is there, so that was phenomenal. The themes that we explored, without spoiling it, but just without giving too much context, I love how deeply layered this movie is. Not only are we dealing with racial implications, cultural identity, the spirituality, and the question of what it means to be free was explored in such an interesting way, as well as just looking at how you tie those things into the vampire of it all and the lore of the vampires and immortality and what that means. It just plays so well within the overall narrative. This is a unique tale of good versus evil, light versus dark, what it means to be a good person, but also a good person is capable of sinning. A good person is capable of doing bad things, but it doesn't change them as a person. So I love what we're exploring with this film, and I also appreciate, as an adult, this is an adult blockbuster movie, y'all. Like, I am so, and again, this is a much further conversation as far as how studios are trying to pander to younger audiences, the TikTok generation that claims that they don't like sexual things in their films. To each their own, but this is a mature film. This is a sexy film. This film is not afraid to play into the more adult theme moments, which I very much appreciated. But also, again, I hope that this is a sign that Hollywood, big blockbusters, $90 to $100 million, can be sexy, can be mature. And I very much appreciate that element. Going into my horror bag, I'm a vampire fan. I've mentioned it several times on this channel that horror is my favorite genre. This movie has a mix of Fright Night, 30 Days a Night, meets From Dusk Till Dawn. Like this, that's my favorite vampire film of all time, just in case you all were wondering. 1996, I believe. I love that film. And this film has a lot of similarities. Not only is it, we have two brothers who are on the run essentially with, Seth and Richie, with Quentin and George Clooney. They go to a bar that happens to be with them. Like, there's so many similarities, but in a modern lens. And obviously this film has its own flavor. But this film very much paid homage to those type of films that I very much loved. And speaking to the vampires of it all, I was very much a fan of their design, their look. I love the red eyes. I like the way they act when they're hungry, and also just the temptation of the vampires and the convincing nature of the vampires. And again, how they, especially the lead vampires, considers himself to be on this hero's journey to building his own family in a sense. So very much a fan of the vampires, the mythology, even though I'll talk about more later. I want a little bit more lore, a little bit more explanation, a little more backstory, but I like what we got for the most part. I like how Ryan is really digging into his horror bag. Like, there's some really effective moments of scares and jump scares. It's not, a terrifying movie by any means, but he does his thing with the horror genre. Like, this is his first time diving into horror, and I thought he did a pretty good job. Now, before we get into my criticisms, I will mention, without giving too much away, my favorite scene. It involves Sammy, aka Preacher Boy, doing his debut song at the bar, at the juke bar. And let me tell y'all, man, the scene, number one, again, I talked about his vocals, phenomenal. But the nature of what's going on, again, the way that music is used and how it's used as a way of like transporting you from the past and the future, and how that is conveyed in this film and in this scene that I'm referring to right now is my favorite scene of the year, and it will probably end up in my top 5 favorite moments of the year as far as films go. It is a beautiful moment, and I was in awe with that scene. I will let you all know, if you plan on seeing this, to stick around. There are 2 post-credit scenes. There's a mid-credit scene and a post-credit scene. Post-credit scene, while on surface might not look as important, but think about, again, the idea of music and freedom. You'll thank me later when you see that scene. And then the scene before that, I loved it. I can't tell you why I loved it, but I'll just say it opens the door for possibilities of this maybe being a franchise, which I wouldn't be mad at. But stick around for those scenes. But now let's pivot into my criticisms. First thing I want to mention, this isn't really the film's fault. This is a Warner Brothers marketing thing for me, a criticism that I have. I have been saying for years that I want to kind of stay away from trailers, but sometimes, especially when it's a film I'm excited for, I can't help myself but to watch trailers. I actually did I did a reaction, one of my few reactions I did on the channel in the last few years for the first trailer, which did a good job, giving you an idea what the film's going into. And I had already heard about what the film was about like a year before the film was even released. But with all that being said, if you have made it to this point and you have been on board, you bought your ticket, you're seeing this film as I'm recording this tonight or over the weekend or sometime sooner rather than later, and if you have stayed away from the marketing, good for you. Kudos, stay strong. Do not watch, especially the second trailer for this film. I'm pointing out the second trailer because if you have seen it, again, if you haven't, don't watch it, but if you've seen the second full trailer for this movie, it gives away most of the big surprises. 3 in particular that I can think of, and I don't want to say it because if you avoid it, I'm not going to spoil it here, but there are 3 things that the second trailer give away that if I wouldn't have known that, I would have been floored. Like, I would have had to seen that for the first time on the big screen versus seeing it in the damn trailer. So again, it's not a movie issue because the movie, even though I knew that going in, it still does a good job. I didn't have context, right? So it still plays into the movie, even though I knew it was coming, but I wish I didn't know. So marketing, shame on you. But getting into the film issues that I had, I do want to talk about, there is 2 movies in this film, and not in a bad way, but in the sense of, it takes about an hour before the vampires are really integrated in the story. Prior to that, it's world building, it's character building, it's developing the characters, letting you know what relationships are what. I appreciate that. But I am curious to know how I feel about the first hour after a rewatch and after another rewatch, as far as, okay, I know these characters, I know the backstory now. How is that first half going to play on a rewatch? That's something, again, it's slower paced than the second half because that's when the ish hits the fan. But I am curious to know how that first half plays on a rewatch, because am I going to find myself skipping to the good parts, or as far as the more action heavy parts, because I know where this is going. So I'm very curious on how that plays, because it is a little bit slower than the second half. But another thing I want to mention is, and I talked about it earlier, I wanted more backstory to the lore of the vampires. Where do they come from? Where do the understanding to the elements of what the main vampire is getting for in this film, like their main objective? Like, I wanted to spend more time, and again, going back to that first half, I wish the first half would have did a better job of integrating the vampire lore more so in that first half than it does. Because when we get to them, it's not that they're rushing things, but it's just like it's very much a matter of fact. And I wish there would have been more exploration of explaining the world and how the vampires operate in this world. And again, more of their lore. And again, if you've seen in the vampire films, the film does, in my opinion, gets a little tropey with the vampire lore and doesn't really, as creative as the film is, I wish there would have been more creativity with their version of the vampires. And there are moments that I enjoy, again, the red eyes and the things that they do when they're hungry, but there are moments in the film that I wish we could have explored more of the supernatural. And also, there are moments kind of playing into the vampires and playing into the tropes and the structuring of the plot. There's moments that there are definitely plot conveniences. There are moments where I feel like there are characters that have some thick, and I mean thick, plot armor that was a little distracting, a little nitpicky. It didn't take me out of the films, but I'm just like, again, the narrative in the film is so well constructed and so well put together that when you do see things, it's just like kind of breaks logic and kind of breaks the momentum of just how things were playing. It's just like, that stands out because everything else is so well put together. So a little nitpick here and there, some tropes that I wish was a little bit more original, and also some plot conveniences and plot armor that was very convenient. But I'll also say this. Unfortunately, not all the characters make it to the end of this movie, and I won't reveal which characters those are. But when the characters meet their demise, certain characters, it felt rushed, and I wish we could have had a moment where it could have been like more of a sentimental, I'm not saying freeze frame the movie and stop everything, stop the momentum, but I wish there was a moment to take in certain deaths, and I'll just leave it at that. But those are my pros, those are my cons. Before I get into my overall thoughts, let you know if it's worth checking out and give you my score of Sinners, I want to take the time to thank you all for making it to this point of the video. If you are enjoying yourself so far, make sure to hit that like button. Make sure to share this video. More importantly, share your thoughts about the film. And if you like what you see, consider subscribing to the channel, but also consider checking out my podcast where you can hear a lot of my deep dives on the things that we love. So check all that out. With all that being said, overall, Ryan Coogler's visionary direction for Sinners, coupled with a score that's destined to win some awards, with some stellar performances and a deeply layered exploration of racial oppression, cultural identity, and spirituality, elevates this film to the realm of essential viewing. I'm not kidding when I say Sinners is one of the most impactful cinematic offerings of the year so far, a masterful blend of intense, unforgettable entertainment with social commentary that demands to be seen on the biggest screen possible. It's a visceral and emotional journey that resonates long after the credits roll, offering a multi-genre experience that seamlessly blends music from the blues genre to the vampire lore that holds the viewers captive from the opening scene to the final haunting note. With all that being said, after watching Sinners for the first time, I'm going to give it a 4.5 out of 5. Again, I mentioned my criticisms with the lore and spending more time on certain elements of characters meeting their demise, and also just little nitpick things every now and then. But minus that, man, a 4.5 out of 5. It's my favorite film of the year. It's not even close. And that's no disrespect to Warfare, which was my favorite film of the year. But this is just entertainment, social commentary, great acting, great direction, great score, great soundtrack. Like, this is what you see the films for. And listen, let me just say this right now. For all the people out there complaining about sequels, prequels, remakes, Disney, Star Wars, Marvel, DC, all that stuff, you want original movies? You got it. Go see this film in theaters. And again, I'm going to see it again in a bigger format, the IMAX presentation, but go support these type of movies if you want to see originality more in your movie watching experience. So I highly advise you all check it out. And when you do, you got to talk to me in the comments. What did you like? What did you love? What didn't you like? Do you want to see more? What did you think about the performances, the direction, the story? And do you think this will be the best film of the year once we wrap up the year, or at least in your top 5? Let's talk about it all in the comments below. Again, thank you all. I'm a little rusty. I'm going to probably do more of these once we get better movies like Sinners, but thank you all for watching this video. I hope you all have been enjoying the content I've been making so far, which has mostly been in the TV realm, but we're going to get back to the movies, and I hope you all join me when doing so. So again, if you made it to this point in the video, I appreciate you. like, share, comment, subscribe to the channel. Check out my podcast. All those links can be found in the description of this video. You all are awesome. Stay safe, and I'll catch you all on the next breakdown.